This is Dabu7. The back and forth continues here, and Russia responding to Ukraine with a massive attack, blasting Kiev and other cities simultaneously, with Kiev on fire. Other cities getting hit not only by missiles, but by drones that are raining down big time. The shockwave coming off of some of these bombs that have dropped is insane. It's crazy. I'm going to share with you here some footage, but the war continues. Join me for the live streams for more.
Ищи! Иди сюда! Давай, ищи!
Ого, вот это разорвало. Ух ты шо? Фух, ты шо?
Shalom. First thing and foremost, I'm going to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone and rule well. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Noise in the gospel abroad, lifting up the standard of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be. This is another lesson through the Spirit. It says Ukrainian capital burning after heavy Russian cruise missile strikes. As we know that the tension between Russia and the Ukraine has been at an all-time high. Going back since 2022, there have been talks of escalation and de-escalation and peace talks and escalation talks. And you had this talk between Russia, Trump, and Zelensky, and they were supposed to come to some type of agreement to declare a ceasefire and for them to back off Ukraine. But you know that Russia, they understand that there's nefarious purposes behind NATO basically in aid of Ukraine, and they understand that the West, America's hand is involved in it somehow, some way because of resources, man. And also, Russia doesn't want a NATO presence or a Western alliance presence built up along their borders, which technically the Ukraine was still part of the motherland of Russia, going back to the former USSR. You know, so since talks have fell through, tensions have become stronger between Zelensky, which in my opinion, he's a small head, and then Vladimir Putin. So now, since Ukraine basically was retaliating against Russia, Russia just took it a step further and they decided to bomb the capital. All right. So when you look in this picture, if you pay attention, it looked like an apparition, it looked like a spirit, okay, or like a demon. You know, and it's funny how, you know, these things resurface because going back into Nueve Once, basically what happened was when the buildings went down, it was reportedly to be like ghostly, like images in the smoke. And this looks nothing more but an apparition. So we know that there are spirits involved in this war, left-hand spirits, which is all being sent from Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, because the scriptures say that the Lord ruleth in the kingdom of men, and also he turneth the heart of the king whatsoever he will. You know? So it says overnight in Kyiv, emergency air sirens are ringing out, and there are reports of sections of the capital burning after cruise missile strikes. So this is the capital of Kyiv, man. All right. So just imagine the populations. People live there. People work there. You know, people shop there, have their normal activities, and yet they just get a bum. And you're going to find out, man, that Russia ain't one to be trifled with. Okay, because the Russians, the Russian czars, you know, those Bolsheviks and shit like that, man. Hey, they ain't nothing to play with. You know, and you soft Americans, man, you slow-belly Americans, you don't think that this is coming to a city near you, you're sadly mistaken, because these cities are going to be under attack as well, because America, believe it or not, you're the next big target on everybody's radar, because they understand that the West has a lot to do with the instability of the world. You know? Damn. It says here, there are further and unverified reports of a combined attack on the way, resulting in powerful explosions and keeping the city's population awake. But meanwhile, there have also been powerful explosions observed near Russia Brian Sachs Airport. So this is just like Twitter posters of it. It says it's burning right now. Little short videos here. Kiev is burning right now. Heavy fires all over the city. And you better believe that the casualty or the death toll is up there. Even if they like to downplay the numbers, which they usually do, people are definitely dying in this war. All right, and this is just the calm before the storm, because this is the time of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai's judgment. It says repeated strikes by Russians destroyed the building of the Kherson Regional State Administration. State, right? The state buildings. Let's see this here.
Whoa! Ебать!
And those are cruise missiles. You know, but they still inflict a lot of damage, especially to infrastructure. But it says that the big expected Russian retaliation on Ukraine Sunday major drone strike begin. But it says Russia says that President Putin is preparing to retaliate at a time of our choosing for all the latest drone and terror attacks, including the target of trains and bridges with explosives. It says Russia will respond to Ukraine's latest attacks as when the military sees fit. But it says, but the Kremlin said Thursday, spokesman Dmitry Peskov confirmed that President Trump revealed of the Putin phone call Wednesday that the Russian leader made clear that Moscow is obliged to retaliate. So there you go. There go escalating tensions. It says Peskov, speaking of Putin's first televised address since the devastating Sunday drone attacks deep inside Russian territory, the president described Kiev regime as a terrorist regime because it was the regime's leadership that constantly gave the order and command in order to blow up the passenger train, right? Because remember the train and they attacked, they blew, like they was attacking in certain targets in Russia, man. It says there's nothing other than terrorism at the state level. But this is an important statement by the president, he added. But Putin had accused Ukraine's leadership of orchestrating a terrorist attack on trains carrying civilians in Russia's Bryansk region, which left 7 dead and dozens injured, and a derailment of a train and collapse of the bridge due to planted explosives on Sunday. It says the operation appears in parallel to Operation Splenderweb's drone attack. So they knew that the Ukrainians was behind it, man, which the Ukraine is backed by the West. So by default, they're looking at Babylon kind of strange because we understand that America, through some form of fashion, they institute these plans behind the scenes. It's their whole thing to set up espionage in different countries to have their way with resources. But it says here, as we reported earlier, the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv has issued an update security alert warning all Americans who remain in Ukraine to be prepared to seek shelter and take emergency preparedness measures as major aerial attacks could be imminent. But a senior NATO official who spoke to the Moscow Times agreed that the significant retaliation is coming, and there will certainly be a retaliatory action that Russia will take, and that would be a defensive thing that Russia would do, the official said. All right, so peep this. Ukraine said it destroyed 1 damaged 2 Islander launchers and were preparing to fire ballistic missiles. So this is the start of something big. This is the escalation into something pretty big, man. All right, which is known as the Third World War or the Third World War or the Third Woe, as the Bible prophesies, man. But it says Russia hasn't seemed to need much excuse for pretty severe strikes so far, but I think Russia will use this to cover and justify additional heavier strikes and stalling negotiations. The NATO source added, most likely Russia will go after the command HQ or headquarters centers in important cities of Kyiv and Odessa could see shock and awe level of bombings. Shock and awe, meaning that there's going to be or heavy damage to the point of mass casualties, man. Okay, a shock and awe moment is like suddenly and it's devastating to the point of impact, man. And these people ain't ready for it. This is why Yahweh Shai say, hey, pray and watch. You know it not when the Son of Man come. All right, and these people, they're not looking forward to Yahweh Shimon Yahushua coming because these are Edomites, man. And even the Jakes in Russia, you think they know what the hell is going on? Fuck no. All right, but
Но как же проводить в этих условиях подобные встречи? О чем говорить? Кто вообще ведет переговоры с теми, кто делает ставку на террор, с террористами? И за что их поощрять, предоставляя передышку в боевых действиях, которая будет использована для накачки режима западным оружием, для продолжения насильственной мобилизации и подготовки других террористических актов, подобных тем, которые были осуществлены в Брянской и Курской областях.
So there you go, man. They already figured it out. Russia is not stupid. All right. In fact, they're pretty wise. And they're very barbaric, too. So. And the thing is, Putin, you know, as they mentioned, they said Putin has offered. Come on, bro. Putin has offered, Satan, man. I'm trying to do, dude, watch my fucking car, bro. Slovakia, man. This dude getting out the car and shit, man. He looked like he's trying to get some stuff out. And I'm like, niggas right on my door. But anyway, it says in the comment, Putin offered three peace talks or like 3 peace talks or, you know, 3 ceasefires to try to level the tensions, man, you know, or to try to even the tensions. But of course, you know, the West and NATO backing Ukraine and America's hand in it somewhere. That's not always the option because, you know, Esau, he doesn't take letting go resources as a light thing, especially when he feels that he's entitled to it. Yeah, just imagine being in your high-rise apartment and all of a sudden you see this flash of light and before you know it, you leveled. All right, but that's the end of this wicked king that day. That's the Lord, man. All right, Yahweh Shai is getting ready to turn things up. But this is the book of Joel 2:1. It says, blow you the trumpet in Zion and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. And this is what the prophets are doing. Okay, we're sounding an alarm in the mountain of Yahweh Shai, and we're speaking on these prophecies, man. And it says, let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahweh coming, and it is nigh at hand, meaning it's near. Okay, the day of Yahweh Shai is near. And we ain't seen nothing yet because tensions are getting ready to escalate on a whole different playing field. It says a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong. It says there have never been the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. Yeah, because once this man goes down, once this rulership passes away, like it tells us in Peter with the great noise, I mean, it's a done deal. You know, it's it. We ain't got to worry about wars. We ain't got to worry about somebody's coming to deface your property and all this other wickedness. We don't have to worry about that no more. Okay, it's a done deal. It's the end. And Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, he's going to set up what you call a utopia on the planet Earth, governed by his people. It says, a fire devoured before them, and behind them a flame burneth. It says, the land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Yea, nothing should escape them, right? Because that represents that besom of destruction. You know, like when the sun comes over the horizon and when the missiles hit, you still have places that's untouched. But once the fire hits, it's a done deal. And that's going to be the end of this wicked generation, man, of this system. Because America is going to go out through ICBM nuclear fire. All right, point A to point Z, this place is going to be engulfed in flames. Hence the metaphor, the lake of fire. And it says, and the appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so they should run. And that's going into the missiles. Okay, so yeah, we have these small proxy wars and these small regional wars transpiring, but eventually these are going to be world wars. And we're seeing that with Ukraine and Russia. Okay, even though essentially they're pretty much the same people. You see? This is a horrible vision from the east. Matter of fact, let's go here to the book of Revelation. Revelation 9. Matter of fact, let's start at verse Revelation 6. 6, and I'm going to start at verses 12. And it says, and beheld, when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as the fig tree casts her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. All right. And those stars are going into the missiles. OK, because when the prophets looked up and they saw this type of activity, or this type of cosmic activity with missiles and so forth being shot.
This morning, explosions rocking you.
It looked like missiles. You know, I mean, it looked like stars because they didn't have the term missile. You know, they use the term like mushroom clouds. They use serpents. They use swords or arrows and stars, because when you see the missiles or the tomahawks falling from the sky, they look like stars. So the prophets, they gave it the best descriptions that they knew in the spirit.
Ukraine's capital before dawn as a new wave of missiles and drones target. This morning, explosions rocking Ukraine's capital before dawn as a new wave of missiles and drones.
Yeah, look like a star, right? So going back here, it says, and the stars of heaven fell into the earth. It says, even as a fig tree casts her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and the rocks of the mountains. Right, because, you know, there's war. To the point, you know, they're going to escape the judgment of the nuclear destruction to be brought headfirst into captivity, man, to serve punishment under our people. You know?
Target both military sites and civilian buildings. Our team in Kyiv rushing into a bunker.
We just heard an air raid alert, an urgent alert telling us to come down to the shelter. That's where we are now with many others from our hotel. The air raid defenses are said to be working in Kyiv, but explosions have been heard, but we are safe down here.
Ukraine's Air Force confirming a large-scale attack across multiple cities, partially destroying this government building in Kherson. It comes days after Ukraine's dramatic drone strike targeting Russian warplanes. The drones, covertly smuggled across the border, were launched from trucks near Russian military sites, allowing Ukraine to strike deep behind enemy lines.
I think our estimate is for sub $20,000 in cost, they took out up to, call it 10-ish billion in assets, and we would face that same problem. It is one of the challenges of our lifetime.
The U.S. Army's top civilian leader now sounding the alarm, warning the U.S. is not prepared for this next generation of warfare.
We've got to figure out how to get this technology into our soldiers' hands this summer.
Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll telling lawmakers the U.S. is racing to partner with companies that have deployed drone technology in Ukraine.
Drones are but one example of a broader shift, and the Army needs to keep pace.
This morning, explosions rocking Ukraine.
Give me 1 second. Who is it? Mayonnaise. All right, you give me like 2 seconds, boss? Yeah. Anyway, man. fucking people here. I gotta deal with this. But anyway, one more precept. This is the book of Job 18, and I'm gonna start at verses. Damn. Yep, 8 verses 14. It says, and his confidence should be rooted out of the tabernacle, and should bring him to the king of terrors, and it should dwell in his tabernacle, because it is none of his, and brimstone should be scattered upon his habitation. So with that, call all y'all, Bashim Yahushai, Lord, to be edified. Shalom.